Welcome to Stretchpedia. Flexibility is an important component of physical fitness, whether you're an athlete, recovering from an injury, or just wanting to stay healthy. So put on some comfortable clothes and let's go through 10 ways to stretch the quads and hip flexors. First, let's talk a little bit about anatomy. The quadriceps are the big muscles found on the front of the thighs. They are often mistaken for being the biggest muscle in the body, but in fact they are actually made up of 4 smaller separate muscles. They are the rectus femoris, the vastus medialis, the vastus lateralis, and the vastus intermedius, which is deep to the other 3. Altogether, these muscles help align our kneecap, and when they contract, they are used to straighten or extend the knee. Our quadriceps can get tight with activities that require repetitive pushing off from a bent leg, such as hiking or climbing stairs, or having the leg extended for long durations, for example in drivers who are constantly using the foot pedals. The hip flexors include the psoas major and minor, iliacus, and the rectus femoris. They are in charge of flexing the hip, which means bringing the knees towards the chest. Tight hip flexors can happen when we sit for too long and can result in a change in our posture, tilting our pelvis forward, which places extra stress on the back. Combining the 2 actions create real-life movements, like kicking a ball. Goal! Now that we know how the muscles work, let's move on to the stretching. First is a standing quad stretch. Standing up straight, hold on to the ankle and bring the heel towards the bum. Feel free to hold on to a wall or a chair for support. Think about tucking your tailbone down and pointing your knee to the ground. Hold the stretch for 30 seconds and repeat on the other side. If holding onto the leg is difficult, try placing your foot on a chair or using a towel to wrap around your foot. Hold this stretch when you feel a slight tension in the front of the thigh. A quad stretch can also be done lying down on your side or on your stomach. Just remember when you're in this position to relax your neck. Next, we will move on to the hip flexors. Find a bed or a bench to lie on and let your leg hang over the edge. Ideally, it should hang freely off the floor. Grab onto the other knee and bring it towards the chest. Your pelvis should be resting on the edge of the bed, and you should feel the stretch on the hip flexor of the straight leg. It's easy to hold your breath when you're lying on your back, so remember to keep breathing. If you don't have a bed, a standing hip flexor stretch might be a good option. Step forward with one leg and keep the back leg straight, heel pressed to the floor. Tilt backward through the pelvis. You should feel a nice stretch through the front of the hip of the back leg. Not only is this a hip flexor stretch, it also challenges balance. So if you need, feel free to hold on to a table or a chair for support. If you want a bit more range on the stretch, place your back knee on the floor and press forward, lunging into the front leg. If you have knee problems, this stretch may not be for you, but feel free to place a pillow or a mat underneath the back knee for cushioning. Another way you can do this stretch is by taking a step onto a stool or a chair with the front leg. As you press your weight forward, it allows a greater range for the back hip to extend. If you have an exercise ball, you can use it to stretch your hip flexors by resting your back leg on it. Push back with the leg to extend the hip. This stretch is definitely more difficult than the others as it challenges balance and it can move the hip through a greater range. The next 2 stretches are for a muscle called the tensor fasciae lata, which inserts on the IT band on the outer side of the thigh. Cross one foot in front of the other and lean away from the back leg. Although the TFL muscle is located on the outer side of the thigh, it plays a role in helping flex the hip. If you find that you're not really feeling a stretch in your outer thigh, try to take a bigger step when you cross your foot. The muscle can also be stretched lying on your side on a bed or a bench. Lie on the edge of the bed and hold on to the other side. Bring the top leg back and let it hang down towards the floor. The last 3 stretches are more advanced and should only be done if you have experienced stretching and go through a pain-free range of motion. From the lunging hip flexor stretch, pull the back leg towards your bum. This will increase the stretch through the hip flexor and include the quadriceps as well. The stretch places more pressure on the knee, so make sure you're not directly on your kneecap and you have a pillow underneath for cushioning. The next stretch is a camel stretch. From a kneeling position, bring your hands behind you to place on your heels or on your ankles. As you arch your upper body back, you should feel a stretch through both of your hip flexors. This stretch requires some balance and places stress on both the knees and the low back. Remember to protect your neck by keeping it in a neutral position. Last but not least is the reclining hero pose, or the double quad stretch. From a kneeling position, lie all the way back and keep your knees folded underneath you. This is another stretch for both of the hip flexors. This stretch places considerable compression on the knee joint and should not be done if you have a knee injury. Now that you know 10 ways to stretch your quads and hip flexors, mix it up and choose the ones that work best for you. That's the best way to stick to it. Happy stretching!